Hi everyone. Today I'd like to talk about the structure of Origipop songs. Song structure is the format of a song, how a song is constructed or put together. There were specific formulas or rules about how to structure Origipop songs, and while there were songs that didn't follow these standard formulas or altered them to create new forms, almost all pieces of original popular music did follow at least the basic elements of these rules. So, let's take a look at original popular music song structure. First, Origipop songs were almost all sectional, that is, composed of a few different distinct sections. A section in music is a complete but not independent musical idea. Types of sections found in original popular music include an introduction, verse, chorus, and bridge. A songwriter would put these different sections together, often also utilizing repeats of certain sections to create a whole song. Let's take a look at these different sections in a little bit more detail. The introduction, often just called the intro, is a short section at the beginning of the song that usually has no words. It isn't very long, usually just 4 or 8 bars or measures long. The music of the intro is usually a shortened version of a theme from a later section of the song. Some might simply borrow some melodic or rhythmic styles from either the verse or chorus section. Some songs even just take the music from the very end of the song and use that as the intro. The intro usually ends either on a tonic chord that feels complete, like here in Meet Me in St. Louis Louis, or the intro can end in a way that leads musically directly into the next section, like here in Happy Days Are Here Again. Very rarely, an Origipop song will have 2 distinct intros. In this case, each is usually 4 measures long, and the first is a more complete melody taken from the main theme found in the chorus and ends on the tonic, while the second serves to introduce the following verse and functions almost like a long vamp, but without an indication to repeat. Here's an example of that from By the Light of the Silvery Moon. A vamp is a short section without lyrics, placed between the intro and the verse. This is usually very short, often just 2 measures long, and intended to be repeated as many times as desired until ready to move on into the sung portion of the song. The music of the vamp is usually distinct from what was just heard in the intro, and is often a copy or slight variation of the music that follows the vamp. Here's an example from Oh You Beautiful Doll. Following the vamp is usually the section called the verse. In Origipop music, this is sometimes referred to as an introductory verse. This section varies a great deal in length and importance, and also evolved a great deal throughout the era of original popular music. I'll talk more about its history and the changes it underwent a bit later on. The music of the verse is also varied. In some pieces, it is very similar musically to the following section, the chorus, but in other pieces, it can be quite distinct. Either way, though, it usually complements the main musical theme found in the chorus, either melodically, rhythmically, or both. An example of a verse with very similar music can be found in the Good Old Summertime. And an example of a verse with a different but complementary melody can be found in Lady of Spain. That piece also showed how a verse can lead right into the chorus, just like an intro can do, as we saw earlier with Happy Days Are Here Again. The verse is usually the first section which has lyrics, and these lyrics usually serve to set the scene. They describe the background to what will be sung about in the chorus. Sometimes the music of the verse is repeated. When it is, the lyrics are usually different each time. The rhyme scheme in the verse is usually AABB or ABAB or some variation thereof. While it is very rare, a few Origipop songs have a section between the verse and chorus called a pre-chorus or transitional bridge. This acts almost like the intro, but for the chorus. It often has a building feeling that leads into the chorus, like is found here in The Yankee Doodle Boy. Another example of this can be found in the song best known from its use in Disney's Tiki Room, Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing. For most songs, the verse is followed directly by the chorus, sometimes called the refrain. This is the most important part of the song. This is usually the most memorable part musically, the main melody of the song, and the part that people would hopefully whistle or hum to themselves later on. The lyrics in this section are the meat of the song, the main message, what the song is really about. The chorus is usually repeated at least once, and when it is repeated, the lyrics don't usually change, although sometimes they can. The chorus, like the verse, varied in length and structure and changed a great deal throughout the era of original popular music. I'll talk more about these changes in a bit, but first I want to introduce a very common form of the chorus that developed in the early 1900s and eventually became the primary form of American popular song during the era of the standards from the 1920s to the 1950s. This is the 32-bar form, or AABA form. A chorus following this form would be made up of 4 8-bar segments for a total of 32 bars or measures. The first 8 measures would be one musical theme called the A section. This would be followed by the same A section again with different lyrics but the same or almost same music. This would be followed by a B section with a different musical theme. Then the A section would return again to end the chorus. A good example of this can be found in one of my favorite Origipop songs, Clap Your Hands, by George Gershwin, as can be seen here. It is the B section of the chorus that is often referred to as the bridge in original popular music. The music of this section usually has a different melody or feel to the main theme in the A section of the chorus, and may be in a different key or use a different harmony that contrasts with that of the A section. A good example of this different feel of the B section, or bridge, can be heard in Irving Berlin's Change Partners. We'll start with the second A section, then listen to the bridge so you can hear how different they are. Also, the A section might be altered a bit each time you hear it. The second A in AABA might end slightly differently than the first time, so it's better to lead into the bridge. And the last A section might be adjusted even more, either to give it a slightly different feel or to end with more pronounced feeling. A good example of this can be heard in No Strings, I'm Fancy Free, also by Irving Berlin. Let's listen to just the end of each A section. In most Origipop songs, the chorus is the last part of the song. However, certain parts of the songs are usually repeated at least once. So at the end of the chorus, there is usually a need to indicate that. The most common is a first and second ending, with the first ending being played first and leading musically right back into the beginning of the chorus. Then, at the end of the second time through, you jump to the second ending and it finishes up the piece in a musically satisfying way, usually by ending on the tonic chord, like here in It's a Long, Long Way to Tipperary. Here's the first ending. And here's the second. There are a few other possible sections that you might see at the end of an Origipop song, and a few different ways repeats can be utilized. But before I get to these, I want to go over the history of Origipop song structure a bit more. Stephen Foster, whom I view as truly starting the era of Origipop, had a few standard forms he used for his songs. For a lot of his minstrel songs, like Camptown Races and Old Folks at Home, he employed a style of a 16-bar verse made up of two identical 8-bar sections, coupled with an 8-bar chorus. While for his English-influenced compositions, such as Beautiful Dreamer and Jeannie with the Light Brown Hair, Foster wrote no verses, but utilized a more sophisticated 16-bar chorus, which he constructed in 4 sections of 4 bars each. Also common during the early era of Origipop were songs that had several verses, with each verse possessing 6 or 7 lines. These multiple and lengthy verses were used to tell long, detailed stories. Examples of this can be found in After the Ball and Comrades. Here's the first verse for After the Ball. A little maiden climbed an old man's knee, begged for a story, do, uncle, please. Why are you single? Why live alone? Have you no babies? Have you no home? I had a sweetheart years ago. Where she is now, pet, you will soon know. Listen to the story, I'll tell it all. I believed her faithless after the ball. And that's just the first verse. There's still the chorus, although it is shorter, and then 2 more verses after that, with the chorus sung again following each. Around the turn of the century, however, this practice of long verses began to change. But it wasn't due to shifting audience preferences, but rather technological changes. As records began to replace piano rolls and rival sheet music as a way people listened to songs, verses began to get shorter. This is because these early records only had between 2 and 3.5 minutes of playing time, and these older, longer verses just wouldn't fit. Eventually, the verses became less important as a result, and by the time the 32-bar form became the primary form of song structure, the verse was essentially vestigial, and though still often written by the composer, was hardly heard on records, stage, or film. It's important to mention here, too, that there were always variations, and many songs didn't fit into these few examples of song structure. A famous song that utilizes an A-B-A-C form is Isn't It Romantic? And there were, of course, earlier songs that had shorter verses, later songs that had longer verses, and a mixture of all of this. However, the structures I've talked about were by and large the most popular ways of creating popular songs during this time. Now, let's return to how a piece can usually end. I mentioned the very common first ending, leading to a repeat of the chorus, followed by the second ending. However, what about a song with multiple verses, where at the end of the chorus you should go back to the beginning of the verse as opposed to the chorus? This is interesting because a lot of sheet music just ignores this completely, even if there are multiple verses. Look at the song Just One Girl. There are 2 verses, but the first ending just leads back to the chorus, and then the second ending ends the piece. How are you supposed to sing the verse again? Well, some songs put a simple DS or DC at the end of the second ending, to indicate to go back to the sign or the beginning, like here in Ever So Goosey. In this case, you're supposed to hear the intro, sing the verse, sing the chorus not once but twice, then repeat back to the second verse and do it all over again. That seems a little extreme, and I feel like sometimes the DS was just added on without thinking much about what it actually meant. One way you could do this that's a little bit easier is to just skip the first ending of the chorus until you sung all the verses, then sing the chorus twice in a row. But it's likely that you'll see this issue more often with later songs where, remember, they didn't care about the verses much. For earlier songs where the verse is much more important, there was another way to do it. As you can see here in After the Ball, at the end of the song is not a first and second ending, but rather an 8-bar instrumental interlude, which can both lead back to the verse or end the piece. This type of ending, or some variation of it, can be found in a lot of these earlier songs where the verse is more important than later on. Another section you might see in an Origipop song, although it is not very common, is a section labeled on the sheet music as trio or patter, or in the example here from Roger and Hart's Mountain Greenery, both. These all act as a sort of an interlude, usually with lyrics, although sometimes without. The music in these sections is usually a bit of a departure from the main theme, even more so than the bridge, and offers a change of mood or focus. It is also usually much longer than the common 8-bar bridge. A trio section can also be found in George Gershwin's Swanee, and this fun, lesser-known song, the Tina Lena. Just as an aside, the term trio is actually derived from a classical music term. In classical music, trio can mean an ensemble of 3 performers, a composition written for these 3 performers, or it can mean the middle section of a piece in ternary form. It seems to me that it is this latter description that describes its use in Origipop songs, because usually you'll see the intro and the verse, then the bulk of the song will be the chorus once, the trio, then the chorus again. Hence, it is the middle part of those 3 main sections. So that's about it. The song structure of Origipop songs are based on sections, and these different sections, including the intro, verse, and chorus, were combined and repeated in highly standardized ways. And the chorus, consisting often of repeating A sections, a B or bridge section, and a few different types of repeats and endings, was highly structured in and of itself. And while there were some variations to these rules and forms, most of the music written during this era followed them pretty stringently. So now you know more about how these classic songs were crafted and created, and perhaps you've gained a new appreciation for these pieces and the composers and lyricists who created some of the most well-known songs of the original popular music era. Thanks for watching.